Last year, California did something it hadn't done in years. It shrank. 54,000 people vanished from the state. Los Angeles alone lost enough residents to fill a small city. Gone. In just 12 months. Every headline screamed the same thing. California is dying. But here's what those headlines conveniently left out. While millions were packing moving trucks and racing for the exits, a handful of tiny towns were doing the exact opposite. Quietly. Explosively. Growing at 3 times the pace of everywhere around them. Adding thousands of new neighbors a year, while their neighbors emptied out. So who are these people? And where on earth are they all going? By the end of this video, you'll know all 10 towns. And the #1 spot is growing faster than 97% of every city in California. Most people have never even heard its name. Let's count them down. Before you go, don't just watch and disappear on us. Tell me in the comments, which town shocked you the most? And would you actually move there? I read every single one. And if this opened your eyes even a little, subscribing is just one click, but it means the entire world to our small team. So hit that button, and let's keep uncovering the stories no one else is telling. Number 10. Chico. Kicking us off at number 10 is Chico, tucked up in Butte County, right where the flat valley floor starts climbing into the foothills. For decades, this was just a college town. Home to Chico State, cheap pizza joints, rowdy weekends, and honestly, not much that ever made the national news. That Chico is gone. Today, Chico's population has surged around 15%, blowing past 108,000 residents. And the story behind that number will stop you in your tracks. Part of this boom has a genuinely heartbreaking origin. Back in 2018, the catastrophic Paradise Fire wiped an entire town off the map just a few miles up the road. Thousands of families lost everything overnight. And when the smoke cleared, where did they go? Straight down the hill, into Chico. Most of them never left. The city didn't just absorb that shock. It grew from it. Chico added over 2,300 new homes in a single decade to house the wave of newcomers. And then a second group started arriving. Remote workers. People who suddenly realized that if their job lived on a laptop, why on earth were they paying Bay Area rent? Chico offered them something the coast couldn't. Tree-lined streets, real nature at your doorstep, and a cost of living that practically laughs at San Francisco. One 22-year-old resident summed the whole feeling up in 3 words. Chico is kind of magical. And you can feel exactly what she means. Farmers markets, a giant leafy park running through the heart of town, a slower rhythm of life, but with enough energy from the university to keep it from ever feeling sleepy. Here's your takeaway. Keep your eye on college towns that have a second engine driving them. Here it's disaster recovery plus the remote work revolution. Towns like that tend to grow quietly, stay affordable far longer than the headlines suggest, and reward the people smart enough to notice them early. And believe me, Chico is only the beginning. Number 9. Dublin. Now for our first real plot twist. Number 9 takes us into the San Francisco Bay Area itself, the exact region that's supposedly hemorrhaging people faster than anywhere in the state. And yet, sitting right in the middle of all that exodus, one town is defying gravity. Meet Dublin. This once sleepy little Tri-Valley town did something almost unheard of. Between 2010 and 2020, it more than doubled in size. Doubled. It now holds more than 70,000 residents and shows zero signs of slowing down. While the big coastal cities were losing tens of thousands of people, Dublin was busy packing them in. So how does a Bay Area town boom when the entire Bay Area is shrinking around it? The answer comes down to one powerful word: transit. The centerpiece of Dublin's growth is the Dublin Transit Centre, a massive mixed-use development built directly around the local BART station. And that changes everything. Because it means you can own a spacious, modern, newer construction home. and still hop on a train straight into San Francisco or Oakland for work the next morning. You get the yard, the quiet street, the elbow room, without cutting yourself off from the region's high-paying jobs. That combination is pure gold, in a place as expensive as the Bay. Dublin has become known as safe, family-friendly, with strong schools and homes noticeably roomier than what you'd fight over closer to the coast. It's the release valve the whole region desperately needed, a place to breathe without leaving the economy behind. Here's your takeaway. If you crave Bay Area access, but the Bay Area itself makes you feel claustrophobic, follow the train lines. Homes clustered around transit hubs, like Dublin's, are exactly where the quiet, patient money moved. They let you have both the paycheck and the peace. And that's a combination people will always pay for. But if you think doubling in size is impressive, just wait. We're barely getting warmed up. Number 8. Irvine. Number 8 is going to completely break the rule I set up at the start of this video. And that's precisely what makes it so fascinating. Down in the heart of Orange County, we have Irvine. Critics love to sneer at it. They call it sterile, cookie-cutter, too perfect. But the residents just smile, because they know something the critics don't. Irvine is one of the best-run cities in all of America, and the numbers back them up loudly. Irvine has added a jaw-dropping 100,000 residents since 2010, ballooning to roughly 318,000 people today. That's not a town growing. That's a town detonating. Here's the twist, though. Everywhere else on this list, the magnet was affordability. In Irvine, it's the exact opposite. The median home price here tops a staggering $1.5 million. So people aren't flooding in for cheap houses. They're coming despite the price. Why? 3 magnetic forces working together. First, jobs. Irvine is packed with high-paying careers in tech, finance, and healthcare, the kind of salaries that justify the mortgage. Second, safety and planning. This is a meticulously master-planned city, consistently ranked among the safest in the country, where nothing feels accidental. And third, the amenities. We're talking elite, nationally ranked schools, the enormous Great Park, endless trails. Irvine was even just crowned one of America's fittest cities. Put all that together and you understand the appeal. People aren't just buying a house here. They're buying certainty. They're buying a place where the schools are excellent, the streets are safe, and the whole system simply works. In a state full of chaos and unpredictability, that kind of reliability is worth a premium. And clearly, hundreds of thousands agree. Here's your takeaway. Growth isn't only about being the cheapest option on the map. Sometimes people will pay top dollar for a town that's safe, planned, and overflowing with opportunity. Irvine is living proof that quality can pull just as hard as affordability. Now let's swing back toward the bargains. Number 7. Roseville. At number 7, we head north to the sprawling suburbs of Sacramento, and a leafy, easygoing town that absolutely exploded when the world turned upside down. This is Roseville, and its growth story is really the story of the entire pandemic era, captured in one single place. Think back to 2020. Millions of people were suddenly trapped inside cramped city apartments, staring at the same 4 walls, realizing they had nowhere to go and no room to breathe. And while all those big, dense cities suddenly felt like traps, Roseville was sitting there quietly, with open arms, and something people were now desperate for: a backyard. The result? An explosion. Roseville's population jumped a remarkable 15%, climbing to over 165,000 residents since 2020. People didn't trickle in. They poured in, chasing space, calm, and a slower pace of life. But the real magic weapon here is the price tag. The median home in Roseville sits around $650,000. Now, I know that might not sound cheap on its own, but here's the context that changes everything. The expensive, job-rich Bay Area is just a manageable drive to the west. And compared to what that same money buys you there, Roseville is an absolute steal. You get dramatically more house, more yard, and more neighborhood for your dollar, all while staying within reach of Northern California's biggest paychecks. That's the trade so many families decided was a no-brainer. Give up a little proximity, gain a whole lot of living. Here's your takeaway. Roseville is the textbook example of a strategy smart buyers swear by. It's called drive till you qualify. The idea is simple. Move just far enough away from the expensive job centers that, suddenly, your income actually stretches. Cross that invisible line, and the same salary that got you a shoebox on the coast can get you a real home with a yard. And speaking of towns built entirely on that idea, our next stop just hit a major milestone. Number 6, Menifee. Number 6 drops us into the Inland Empire, that fast-rising stretch east of Los Angeles, where a town called Menifee just smashed through a milestone that most places only dream about. It officially blew past the 100,000 resident mark, and today sits at around 118,000 people. To put that in perspective, that's roughly 40,000 brand new residents in just 15 years. An entire town's worth of people, showing up in barely more than a decade. So who exactly is packing up and moving to Menifee? The answer is a genuinely fascinating mix of two very different groups. On one side, you've got young families, people priced completely out of Los Angeles and San Diego, looking for a fresh start where a home is still within reach. And on the other side, retirees, folks chasing warm sunshine, peace and quiet, and a calmer chapter of life. Two groups, opposite ends of the timeline, both landing in the same place. Menifee has even grown its own local celebrity out of the boom, an Instagram influencer affectionately known as Menifee Mom, who documents the town's bakeries, wineries, and community events, quietly selling the good life to families scrolling from more expensive zip codes. But here's the part that really matters, and it's straight from local officials. This growth isn't an accident. It's happening by design. The city's philosophy is simple but powerful. More rooftops lead to more commercial and industrial development. In other words, get the houses built first, and the shops, jobs, restaurants, and services will naturally follow the people. It's a deliberate, engineered boom. Here's your takeaway. Keep a sharp eye out for towns that are growing intentionally, places with a clear plan to build. When a city commits to rooftops first, the amenities and jobs almost always chase after them. And the residents who arrive early, before all that development matures, are the ones who ride the wave all the way up. Now, hold on to that idea, because our final 4 towns take it to another level entirely. Number 5, Clovis. At number 5, we roll into the Central Valley near Fresno, to a town whose entire explosive growth story can be summed up in one single word, a word that will hit home for every parent watching right now. That word is schools. Welcome to Clovis. Over the past 15 years, this town has grown a powerful 35%, climbing to roughly 130,000 residents. And when you ask families why they moved here, the answer comes back again and again with almost eerie consistency. They came for the school district. Clovis is home to one of the most highly rated, sought-after school systems in the entire region. And for parents, that's not just a nice bonus, it's the whole reason. It's the deciding factor that outweighs everything else. But Clovis isn't a one-trick town. Layered on top of those incredible schools, you've got a brand new shopping center, fresh housing developments springing up, and a small-town, community-first feel that so many people feel they've lost elsewhere. And then comes the number that ties it all together. The average home price sits around $520,000. For a place with schools this good, in a state this expensive, that is a genuinely rare combination. A local realtor captured the entire appeal in one perfect sentence. They said, Clovis is one of the last places in California where you can buy an affordable house in a really great neighborhood with great schools. Read that again, because it's basically the holy grail. Affordable, great neighborhood, great schools. In California, having all three at once is almost unheard of, and it's exactly why families keep pouring in. Here's your takeaway. If you've got kids, understand this. School district quality is the single most reliable predictor there is, not just of a town's population growth, but of its long-term home values too. Great schools pull families in, families push prices up, and the whole cycle feeds itself. Follow the good schools, and you're following the money. Now buckle up, because we're entering the true epicenter of it all. Number 4. Manteca. Now we arrive at the beating heart of this entire story, the northern San Joaquin Valley, where our final 4 towns are packed so tightly together you could genuinely visit every last one of them in a single afternoon. This is ground zero for California's inland boom. And leading the charge at number 4 is a town that wears its identity right on its sleeve. Meet Manteca, a place that proudly brands itself as the Family City. And that nickname is no accident. Manteca has completely transformed itself, from a quiet, unassuming farming community into a bustling, fast-rising suburb. Since 1990, its population has rocketed up over 130%, reaching 96,511 residents, and it's charging straight toward cracking the 100,000 mark by 2027. That's not slow, steady growth. That's a full-blown reinvention. But here's the single statistic that genuinely stopped me in my tracks. In just 1 year, 2025, Manteca built 809 single-family homes. That was the most of any city in the entire state of California. Not apartments, not condos stacked to the sky. Actual houses, homes with driveways, front doors, and backyards where kids can run around. In a state constantly criticized for cramming people into tiny boxes, Manteca went all in on the classic family dream. And the town leans into that identity hard. Family magnets like the massive Great Wolf Lodge water park have turned Manteca into a genuine destination, not just a place to sleep. Everything about it seems engineered around one specific buyer, the growing family looking for room to actually live. Here's your takeaway. Pay very close attention when a town leads the entire state in single-family home construction. That's not a random data point. It's a town telling you, loud and clear, exactly who it's building for. Manteca is betting everything on families who want space and ownership over cramped convenience. And so far, that bet is paying off spectacularly. But right next door, an even bigger milestone is about to fall. Number 3. Tracy. Number 3 sits just a stone's throw from Manteca, and it's a town standing right on the edge of a huge, headline-grabbing moment. Say hello to Tracy, a place that's about to officially arrive. Here's where things stand. Tracy closed out last year with 99,705 residents. Read that number carefully. It's sitting a mere 295 people away from smashing through the 100,000 mark. Which means, realistically, any day now, possibly by the time you're watching this, Tracy will have officially graduated into big city status. It's a milestone years in the making, and it's essentially a done deal. So what's fueling Tracy's relentless climb? Its true superpower comes down to one thing above all else: location. Tracy sits at the perfect gateway, the exact meeting point between the affordable Central Valley on one side and the high-paying, job-rich Bay Area on the other. And that position has turned it into an absolute magnet for a very specific and very determined kind of resident, the super commuter. These are the people who've done the math and cracked the code. They live in Tracy, where a home is genuinely affordable by California standards, but they earn a full Bay Area salary. It's the best of both worlds. Valley prices funding a Bay Area paycheck. Sure, the commute is long and the mornings start early, but for thousands of families, that daily drive is a small price to pay for actually owning a home instead of renting a closet closer to the coast. That trade-off has powered Tracy's steady, unstoppable surge. Here's your takeaway. Some of the fastest appreciating towns in any state are the ones sitting right on the border between a cheap region and an expensive one. That's the sweet spot. Tracy is standing directly on that fault line, pulling in affordability seekers and paycheck chasers at the very same time. And that's a recipe for growth that rarely runs out of steam. But our top two, they make even Tracy look slow. Number 2. Lathrop. Our runner-up at number 2 has numbers so wild I actually had to double-check them to make sure they were real. Get ready for Lathrop, because this town isn't just growing, it's rewriting the rulebook on what growth even looks like. Let's start with the milestone. Lathrop just shattered the 40,000 resident barrier, landing at exactly 40,942 people. Solid, sure, but that number alone doesn't come close to telling the real story. Here's the one that will drop your jaw. When Lathrop was first incorporated as a city back in 1989, it had a grand total of just 6,841 residents. From there to today, this town has ballooned by more than a staggering 500%. 500%. That's not a suburb filling in, that's a rocket taking off. And the momentum isn't slowing, it's accelerating. Lathrop was recently named one of the fastest-growing suburbs in the entire United States. Not just California, the whole country. And in a single 12-month stretch, it added 2,151 new residents. The biggest raw population gain of any small town on this entire list. So what's behind this explosion? Two big forces. First, enormous master-planned communities. Flagship developments like river islands, built from the ground up, with lakes, schools, and parks baked right in. Second, an aggressive commitment to home building, with 765 new homes thrown up in just 1 year. Pair all of that with Lathrop's prime Valley meets Bay Area location, and the boom practically explains itself. The mayor summed up the mood perfectly, saying, "People are choosing Lathrop because they see opportunity here." And clearly, they do. Here's your takeaway. Newly incorporated, aggressively master-planned cities are exactly where the most explosive growth tends to live. Places like Lathrop are being built almost from scratch, which means if you get in early, you're buying before the schools, shops, and amenities fully mature, and crucially, before the prices catch up to match. But there's still one town growing even faster, and you've probably never heard its name. Number 1, Mountain House. And here it is, the number 1 fastest-growing town in all of California, the champion. The town growing faster than 97% of every single city in the state. And here's the kicker. Most Californians still can't even point to it on a map. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Mountain House. This place is unlike anything else on our list, because Mountain House wasn't a farming town that slowly modernized or a sleepy suburb that woke up. It was built, deliberately, from absolute scratch, as a master-planned community. A brand new town, designed on paper and then willed into existence. And that bold experiment is paying off in spectacular fashion. Just look at the numbers. Mountain House has reached 30,687 residents. And here's the headline that earns it the crown. It grew 5.6% in a single year. That makes it the fastest-growing city in California, among all cities over 30,000 people, outpacing every established, famous name in the state. In just 12 months, it welcomed 1,639 brand new neighbors, and it's now standing right on the verge of officially becoming its very own incorporated city. A town that barely existed a generation ago is about to plant its flag for good. And why is everyone rushing here? Because Mountain House checks every single box we've talked about in this entire video, all at once. Brand new homes with zero wear and tear. Top-rated schools built right into the community's DNA. Wide open valley space to stretch out and breathe. And just enough reach toward those coveted Bay Area jobs to make the whole thing work financially. Here's your takeaway. Mountain House is, in many ways, the purest and clearest example of where California is actually heading. Not toward the crowded million-dollar coastline everyone obsesses over, but inland, toward planned, purpose-built communities designed from the ground up for families who simply want room to breathe, a home to own, and a future to build. And that single insight is the thread tying all 10 of these towns together. That flatly contradicts every gloomy "California is dying" headline you've been fed. Because 9 out of these 10 towns are telling the exact same story. And it's the opposite of collapse. People aren't fleeing California. They're redistributing inside it. They're walking away from the crowded, million-dollar coast and flooding into the interior. The San Joaquin Valley, the Sacramento suburbs, the Inland Empire, chasing the same 3 things over and over. A home they can actually afford, schools worth bragging about, and room to breathe. The coastline is contracting. The heartland is booming. That's not a state in decline. That's a state on the move. So what do you actually do with all this? A few simple, powerful moves. If you're house hunting, lean into the drive till you qualify logic these towns are built on. Every 30 minutes inland can double what your money buys. If you've got kids, weigh school ratings above nearly everything else, because that's what drives both growth and long-term value. And if you're an investor or a dreamer, remember that the early days of a master-planned town, a Lathrop or a Mountain House a decade ago, is historically where the biggest wins were hiding in plain sight. The California exodus is real, but so is the quiet, overlooked boom happening just an hour inland, and now you know exactly where to look.